This is going to be a very long video, and I mean very, 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 very long. Because there's a lot of good points I want to make, and a lot of other shows I want to bring up that has to do with this one character. So just bear with me. This is my own observation. And maybe you will see the views that I have. So here we go. Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I want to talk to you today about a controversial character in this show. One who is probably a bit more controversial than the Mallory character in season 5. And that character is none other than Maggie Beckett. Maggie is a very, very, very controversial character in the Sliders universe, mainly because of how she was introduced halfway into the 3rd season and her attitude throughout the entire 3rd season. Now, I have talked in great deal about the Maggie character in the past. When I did the character rundown on her, like I did all the characters. And the reason why I'm making this video is because lately, when I started making my videos again since last year, I've been doing second character profiles. Okay, let me cut this part off right here, right now. I'm actually re-recording this because I've been doing a lot of thinking and a lot of researching, and there's a lot of pondering for the last couple of days of how exactly this video is going to come about. What exactly I'm going to say. What kind of message really needs to come across. And I have decided to break this video down. I'm thinking I'm just going to break this video down in certain areas. First area is going to be, does Maggie Beckett deserve the hate that she receives? Let's fix season 3 Maggie and the hate that surrounds Kari Wuhrer, the actress. Because since last year I've been making new slider videos on second profiles of the characters, and I always plan on making another Maggie Beckett video. Well, part of this video is going to sound a little jumbled because in my original video I said some really good points, and I want to keep those points. Okay, so when I made my second Sabrina video, the one that says, Wade deserved better, I noticed that both Maggie and Kari received a lot of hate. And I totally understand why both people are getting that hate. Maggie Beckett sucked in season 3. She was just a raging you-know-what. And the actress who plays Maggie, Kari, she was largely responsible for Sabrina leaving the show because of that huge argument they got into. And I totally get that. Even I'm still to this day pissed off about that because that should have never, ever happened. Period. But, we really don't know what truly went on behind the scenes. We don't know how much bickering is going on between both. This could be like an Alyssa Milano, Shannon Doherty type thing, or Jenny Garth, Tori Spelling, Shannon Doherty thing, where it's kind of like, you hear only one version of the story, but you don't know the other one. And if you paid attention to what Jessica Alba said about the cast of 90210, is that she was instructed not to even look at the cast. That's how big their egos were. And of course, now they've been denying all that. Oh, we don't remember, and da-da-da-da. No, they remember. They just don't want to say because they don't want nobody to judge them. But seeing how many of their careers have pretty much ended now, and slowly, those roles are slowly drying up, who cares if people hate them now? Just admit to the truth. That's what I wish celebrities would do. I hate these fake celebrity apologies after they do something. It's just just tell the truth. And don't just tell the truth because you got caught. And I'm about to put a pin in that for another actress on that later. So, does Maggie Beckett deserve the hate that she receives? Yes and no. See, the reason why she gets so much hate is because of season 3. She was written in as an antagonist, kind of an anti-hero to the group of sliders that were heroes. She was supposed to be the polar opposite of Wade, the only female on that show. And I feel as though people like, okay, when you're watching a TV show or a movie, that is all you see. That character's personality is who like that person pretty much is from start to finish. I've said before, not on this channel, but I've said before, like on Twitter, if you're having a TV show and a character, if it's a sitcom, that character needs to be how they are from point A all the way to point Z. If you're doing like a drama, then you can start doing character development, because with a sitcom, for some bizarre reason, that feels like those characters are frozen in time. But with a drama or action series, then they have room to expand their personalities. And that's exactly what happened to Maggie through season 3, 4, and 5. Her personality changed. It changed a little too quickly, in my opinion. And there's a reason for that, because when Sabrina left, there was no more Wade, so they had to have a new Wade type character. So they just basically made Maggie Wade in season 4, but they still kept traits of Maggie's personality from season 3, just not as badly as season 3. Season 3 Maggie is unbearable. I've said it before, she's a raging B word. She's angry, she's selfish, she's very mean towards the group that she's with. She is very anti-hero. Like, she wants to stop Brittman because he murdered her husband. And I totally understand that. But the way they went about it was that she literally only saw that. Like, she couldn't see nothing else. And it blinded her from being really who she was. Like, you gotta remember, she was in the Air Force. She was in the military. And when you're in the military, you're supposed to serve your country and protect those who cannot protect themselves. And she totally lost that obligation and got blinded by hatred. And because that season was the whole sexier, like action-packed season, they put her in a lot of skimpy outfits and had her be very, very, very like not action-packed. Cause really didn't see her fight hand-to-hand combat until season 4. It was mostly just, she shot a lot of stuff or shot a lot of people, and she was just fighting with a lot of the cast and the characters. Like the first time we see her, there's a conflict between her and the Sliders. Like, she has a gun pointed at them. Now, in her defense, the Sliders were kinda in the wrong. So I totally understand why she was angry towards them. She's this military officer. Her boss is this evil man who she once was in love with and had an affair with her husband. And he lies to people all the time. But like many people believe him. And he wanted this one scientist murdered because the scientist knew that these pulsars was going to hit the planet and kill everything. He was not ready to disclose that with everybody in the world, or at least that part of America, because it would have caused panic. And the sliding technology they were trying to create wasn't up and running yet. They couldn't figure out that key component until our sliders slid into that world. So chances are he lied to Maggie and those other officers that were with her. So when the sliders come on the scene, they see he is dead. And Maggie comes there and she assumes that they did that. Now chances are, now that America was fighting with Russia. So she believed, and what was told to her is that that doctor was a Russian spy. And so when she sees these group of people she's never met before, and this dude is like dead, she assumes that they're either working for him, maybe, or they killed him or something like that. So she has her gun drawn. Quinn, being the superhero that he is in this season, he decides to disarm her. Now you gotta remember, she's a military officer, very trained, and this dude just disarmed her. And not only did he disarm her, he stuffed her in the trunk of a car. So if you stop and think about it, he was in the wrong. And the professor has warned him about this in past seasons. Stop jumping into stuff and trying to be a hero. So if anybody is really to blame in that situation is really Quinn. And so when she finds them again, she finds them in that doctor's office. So that makes them all look very, very, very suspicious. So I can totally understand why she was rude to them the way she was and had her gun drawn and stuff. Now, after all that, then yeah, I understand like a lot of people's hate. I have this same frustration. I was talking to this with one of the people that commented. The whole like Quinn Maggie love affair thing was jacked up. The fact that they sexualized her character was even more jacked up. Like, here she was, this married woman, and Quinn of all people knows she's married and is trying to like kiss her and crush on her and all this other stuff. And her husband, he knows she cheated on him on the past with Rickman. And when he sees Quinn starts to like, you know, give her that look, he basically just puts Quinn in his tracks. Like, I'm not going to quote word from what he said, but basically he told him, look, dude, I might be in a wheelchair, but you need to back up. And the thing about her husband, he wasn't born in paraplegic. That happened in his adult life when they took a vacation in a skiing accident. So it's bad enough that this dude who she's totally in love with, and her husband's a very nice guy. Like, he's like one of the nicest characters on that show. So for her to cheat on him with her boss, who's a bad boy, that just makes her look terrible. And I totally understand why people are pissed off about that. I'm pissed off about that. But that's not enough for me to hold a grudge on her, and it's because of the 4th season. Put a pin in that later. Now, you have to also think, her husband's a nice guy. Why would he be with a bad girl for? She must have some traits of kindness and empathy. And there's small traces that we get all throughout the 3rd season, but it's not enough because the writers overshadow that with her angry, aggressive side. So when she did a complete 180 turn in season 4 and became like this good girl, in a way it was kind of out of nowhere. I remember when I saw him, just like, who is this character in the 2nd episode? This isn't Maggie Beckett, because in the 1st episode of the 4th season, she's still very much Maggie and stuff, just slightly nicer. And in the 2nd episode, she's very nice. Like, she's very compassionate to this one lady who's in the cult, and she doesn't want this lady to die. And it's to the point where she's almost in tears because she sees this lady as being brainwashed, and it's part of her own humanity coming back out and her service to her country of wanting to protect people. And it wouldn't be so much of a shocker if we would have saw more of that in season 3, and we barely saw that in season 3. Because, like I said before, she was a very selfish, angry woman. Like, she literally wanted to leave the Sliders on the world just so she can go hunt down and kill Rickman. And, you know, Wade and Rembrandt, they said this perfectly. They told Quinn, you know, what are we supposed to do when we catch Rickman? Are we supposed to hold her down as Maggie murders him? And Quinn's all like, look, he needs to be stopped, plain and simple, because Quinn really loved the professor. And it's kind of like, that's a good question. That reminds me of The Walking Dead season 2 with the whole Randall situation. What do you do with this bad character that does these bad things and is gonna eventually come back to hurt you or somebody else, and you know for a fact you're not a murderer? Like, that's just not who you are. Like, what do you do with this person? The Sliders, they couldn't like take him with them and hope he has like a Negan, like, you know, transformation when he turns like into a good guy. They can't imprison him on that world because the locals, they don't know nothing about sliding. They don't know that he's a bad guy. They don't know his face can morph and all this other stuff, and he takes brain fluid from people. So it's kind of like, what do you really do? And the writers really couldn't figure out that, and then that would have been a great debate. That would have been some great character development, a great story, some dramatic tension, but the writers didn't do that. Instead, they just have Rickman jump over a cliff when he's trying to kill Maggie and Quinn, and he jumps a little too high over and falls down and dies, and that's it. And so, you know, I think if they would have wrote her character a little bit better in the 3rd season, not have her fight with every character, because she fought with every character. She briefed, like, the professor gave her a stern talking to when he first meets her. Her and Quinn bicker a little bit here and there, because he's all like, look, we're not leaving people behind, we're not gonna be killing people, and she's all like, oh, you're soft. And we know she hated Wade. Rembrandt, on the other hand, I don't think she ever fought with him in the third season. Like, she physically fought with him when she was possessed by that symbiote, but that's about it. And even in the fourth season, those two never really fought. They had a disagreement, but that's about it. And I think Rembrandt was really the only person she could really gel with because he was in the military. And so she liked that aspect. She liked Quinn in the romantic sense, but she saw him as being too much of a goody-goody two-shoes type. In a way, the female, well, you know how most women are. They get combative when it comes to like other females, and they just want to be like the sole female and stuff. So I really do feel if they would have changed her character a little bit in the season 3, not to make her so unbearable, stop focusing on her body, and all that behind the scenes stuff, I believe fans will like her more. Because when you do go into the 4th season, like I've said before, she is a completely different person, a true 180. But the good thing the writers did is they still kept some of her like sass, her anger, her fighting skills. She didn't turn into a complete goody-goody. She still had a little bit of her like anti-hero rays, but not as much. She was more of a hero than she was an anti-hero, and that's exactly how you write it. You just can't write a bad character off and turn them completely good all of a sudden without having them still have traces of who they were before. I remember this confused me when I watched the Hercules show and they had Xena on there. At that time, we didn't know nothing about Xena's past. The only thing we knew about her is that she has an army. Every member of her army is in love with her because when she goes into a new town, she finds a guy, she makes him fall in love with her, and then he joins the army, and then they kill people and stuff, and they take the resources. That's all we knew about her. And when like the second time we see her, and towards the end, she turns kind of good, I think. Yeah, I think she turns good because of that baby in Simonius, and that turns her good. And then the third time we see her, she's a complete goody-goody two-shoes. The tone of her voice is goody-goody two-shoes, and it's just like, who is this woman? This ain't Xena. And then when she got into the TV show, the smart thing they did is they made her a nice person. They made her silly at times, but they kept her stern. They kept her with that attitude, and they needed to do that. That was great writing right there. And then we find out her backstory. She's been trying to conquer the entire world since she was like in her 20s, and now her character is like in her 40s. And now I get, and then it's kind of like, now I get why like that sudden shift turned her into like a really goody two shoes when she was in her 3rd episode of Hercules, because after like 2 decades of like trying to like murder the entire world, like she just finally had enough, you know. So I really don't think people should really judge Maggie, the entire character of Maggie, based solely on the 3rd season and all the stuff that she did, because she wasn't the one who killed off the professor. The professor got killed off because of John's mouth, so he's to blame for his own exit. But he was totally right for opening his mouth and saying what he said, because the writers should have known better, and they didn't. Even in the last episode he was in, they rewrote that episode. The military was supposed to be their friends, and instead they were the enemy. It was not supposed to be pulsars that destroyed the Earth. But I do like the changes that were made. It made it more interesting. Now, as for character development, in other TV shows, there are 2 main examples I'm about to give right now. A good way to have character development and a bad way to do character development in a person. And this is, like I said before, with the Maggie character, they kind of rushed her character development a bit in the 4th season. It's just like, okay, you're good now. And like I said before, if they would have just had like a couple of traces of more compassion and heart, I don't think people would hate her as much as they do. Because Maggie was either an angry person or a horny person. And that's not the type of person you want to see on TV in a show like this. Now, bad example of character development. Ensign Tilly from Star Trek Discovery. Good character development, Gabrielle from Xena Warrior Princess. Now, Tilly. Okay, I'm gonna say this. I really love the actress who plays Tilly. I just love Mary to death. She is great at comedy. She needs to be in a sitcom. Tilly, on the other hand, in my opinion, is the worst Star Trek character in history. The second worst, I think her name is Agnes from Star Trek Picard. And don't even get me started on those people from Lower Deck. I'd only watched one episode of that. It depressed me, and I said I'm never watching it again, and I haven't. Now, Tilly. Now, I know a lot of you are saying Michael Burnham is the worst character in Star Trek history. Actually, she's not when you stop and think about it. She's only terrible because the writers force her on us. She's a commander who's insubordinate. She always saves the stinking day, and the show focuses on her and her only. That has pissed off fans. It had pissed me off. I do not want to see her be the main focus. She's only a commander. I want to see the whole bridge crew, the senior staff, be the main focus, like a good old Star Trek show. But they don't do that. Now, Michael Burnham, she's an okay Star Trek character, and she's a pretty good she's a really, really good Starfleet officer. Tilly, on the other hand, and the reason why I'm bringing her up is that Tilly is a terrible Star Trek character, and she's even a worse Starfleet officer. Let me explain. Okay, the personality of Tilly is Aunt Hilda from the classic Sabrina Teenage Witch show meets Sailor Moon. She's a goofy, loving person who's very silly, has no confidence in herself whatsoever, has to rely on other people to help her, and she cries all the freaking time. Now, Michael Burnham cries too, and that gets on my nerves. Anyway, Tilly cries. Tilly cries. Tilly cries. A lot. Now, let's go into a little back history of Tilly. Now, they had the worst character development for a character I've seen in like forever. Season 1 and 2 has Tilly acting exactly the same. Season 3 that just now ended sees her in a different light. Now, like I said before, Tilly is goofy, she is silly. She's also a smart person, but she's not the smartest person on the ship. Tilly is in the first 2 seasons, Tilly is the 5th smartest person on the show. Now with Adira on season 3, now Tilly is the 6th smartest person on that show. So she's a smart person, but she's not like a genius. Now, when she starts off on the first season, she's not even a Starfleet officer, really. She's a cadet, and she has not even completed her cadet training. So throughout the entire season 1, she is a cadet on an experimental flagship that is highly hush-hush and classified. Nobody knows about this ship. Only certain like admirals in Starfleet know about this ship because it has a spore drive, and that's something that's never been seen in Starfleet history, and it's not supposed to be back in the Kirk days. Now, like I said before, in season 1 and 2, her personality was exactly the same. She has no confidence. She cries a lot. She doesn't know how to take on a leadership role. And she needs the help of others, especially Michael, to boost her confidence level up. And when she can't figure something out and she gets upset, she literally wants Michael to help her, and then she cries about it. I'm not joking. In season 2, she had an alien force inside her body. It made her see the hallucination of her dead friend from when she was a kid. I don't know why this kid friend of all of a sudden is an adult, because Tilly hasn't seen her since she was a child, and the child died, and so how would Tilly know what she looks like as an adult? I'll tell you how. KURTZMAN'S logic. That's how. Now, when Tilly got upset, she literally cried, saying, I want Michael. And because the thing was inside her, and she was like all hallucinating in the head. Why does she need another officer for moral support? Why can't she be strong enough on her own? And that's how she was for the first 2 seasons. Now we get to season 3. In the first couple episodes, Tilly is still Tilly. For some bizarre reason, Saru brings her... Oh, by the way, at the end of season 1, she is now an ensign. And from the time of season 2 to season 3, not much time has taken past. At the most, a couple of weeks to a month to 3 months. So let's just say the course of season 3 is about 3 months. So she's only been an ensign for 3 months, but she's been a cadet all her Starfleet life. So she's not really that much of an experienced officer, and Saru brings her on an away mission because now they're far, far into the future because they travel there. And instead of bringing the security officer with him or one of the lieutenants, because every bridge crew is a lieutenant except for Tilly, instead of bringing one of them, he brings her. And like in typical Tilly fashion, she messes up and she can't save the day and she has to hide while somebody else beats the bad guys up. Now, Michael, like I said before, is insubordinate. She goes off and does whatever she wants and breaks rules, and it got to the point where they finally demoted her. She is no longer first officer. Instead of making one of the lieutenants his first officer, or that blonde lady who has taken command of the ship before. I call her blonde lady because I don't know her name. Nobody knows anybody's name on this show because they don't really let nobody know, or their rank. You have to look it up, and I'm not about to look it up again. So so he makes Tilly his first officer, and everybody was kind of like the fans were kind of like, what the world's going on? The girl's only been an ensign for like 3 months or so, and before that she was a cadet. How is she a first officer? She does not have the experience, the training, the nothing. And people speculated this, and it happened. The moment she became first officer, they did a complete 180 on her personality. She was no longer goofy. She now had confidence, and she demanded respect. This is not Tilly. This is not Tilly at all. This came out of complete nowhere. And then when the bad guy, or bad girl I should say, took over the ship in the second to last episode, old Tilly came out. Because she was inexperienced. She did not know how to handle a major bad person trying to take over the ship. And it showed. She was basically just pretending to be like a good commander. And that inexperience shone big time on her face. When they was captured, they escaped, but it wasn't her who led the escape. It was the two male officers, names once again, I don't know. But one of them security officer and the other one's the communication officer. They escaped because they tricked the guards. They was using Morse code to communicate with each other by tapping, I think on the wall or tapping on their body. And the guard got pissed off, what is this? Blah, 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 blah. And so the dudes are I forgot what he says, but he says it in a very mature kind of way of what he's doing and stuff. And so both of them are still tapping, and it's pissing the guard off. Tilly decides to join in and distract the guard. She does it verbally by saying, I kid you not. I'm just like, what? How did you go from being goofy in the first 2 seasons to very confident in the third season, and then back to a goofball in the last 2 episodes? And that's because of bad writing and bad character development. And so they escape, and they have to stop the ship. And Commander Tilly, or first acting officer Tilly, she doesn't even regain the ship. Michael Burnham contacts her on the communication device and gives her a hint about her birthday. And that reminds Tilly of the time that she got upset on her birthday. She ran to the nacelles on the ship because really nobody goes there, and she cried all day long. And so once again, they 180 her personality. Tilly orders the operations officer to basically sacrifice her life to stop the ship, like a good commander should. And it's who is this person I'm watching? This is not Tilly. If you ever watch Tilly, you will know exactly who Tilly is. This is not Tilly. That is bad character development. That is bad writing. This is part of the reason why I hate New Trek. I'm over the fact that technology is in the wrong time period. I'm okay with Spock having a mystery sister, because he had a mystery brother in the movie. I'm okay with Klingons looking the way they are. Now I hate this show because the writing is terrible, and the writing is terrible because of Kurtzman's logic. Now, let's shift gears to good character development. Gabrielle from Xena Warrior Princess has by far the best character development I have ever seen in any TV show. It is way better than anything on The Walking Dead. The reason for that is because with The Walking Dead, they will have great character development as well. The only problem with that is once you figure out how much time passes in The Walking Dead, it's kind of like, whoa, these people have some like split personalities. Carl from The Walking Dead lasted all the way to season 9. When you look at this character, he looks like he's 18 years old because the actor was 18 years old in the season 9. Guess what? Carl's a whole lot younger than what he looks like on that show. He's a lot younger than what he is on that show. That is how little time has passed from season 1 to season 9. Not much time has passed. From season 1 to season 2, only a few days have passed, or weeks. From season 2 to season 3, a couple of months have passed. From season 3 to season 4, only a few months have passed. So for the most part, from season 1 to season 4, really only the time span of a year has passed. And so don't even get me started on season 5 to 9, because once again, not much time has passed. So when you see characters like Carol do a complete like 180 from being like a coward in season 1 and 2, start to have a little bit backbone in season 3, and go completely psycho in season 4 and beyond that, it's kind of like, who is this woman? You know, like, not much time has passed, Carol. Why are you having split personalities? And, you know, and it's just like, and Rick is the same way. It's like his personality changes like on the drop of a dime. But Rick has went through so much trauma in them short period of time, I can understand why he's the way he is. Now back to Gabrielle. Gabrielle started off on Xena as just this young little girl, probably no more than 17, 18, 19, and she was supposed to be married. She didn't want to be married and tied down. She wanted to explore the world and write. She's a bard, and she just wants to tell stories. But she also wants to live that warrior lifestyle. She meets Xena. It intrigues her. She goes off with Xena. She runs away from home. Throughout the entire first season, Gabrielle is exactly how she needs to be. She's a young, scared little girl who runs off the mouth. She doesn't know how to fight. She can't throw a punch. She doesn't know how to track. She doesn't know how to do anything. And she gets out of situations by using her best weapon, her mouth. She will talk you to death to the point where you will get bored and let her go, or she'll talk to you to death until Xena can rescue her. As time passed, like around like say second season, I believe it was. I can't really remember. It's been a while since I saw this show. She slowly starts to become a warrior. She first meets these Amazons. She gets initiated into their ranks. She becomes a princess because something happened that caused her to be a princess like really fast. And because now she's a Amazon, they have to train her. They start training her with the staff. She leaves, go off with Xena, but Xena decides, okay, fine, you know, my life is dangerous and chances are I can't always save you, so I'm going to teach you how to fight. And since you already have a staff, I'm going to keep teaching you how to use the staff. And so throughout like nearly the entire series, we see Gabrielle and her staff, or as people like to say, Gabrielle and her stick. She still writes, she still talks, she still tells stories, but she's now slowly becoming a warrior. She's not full-on warrior. She can't do flips. She can't fight hand-to-hand combat. And she doesn't know how to throw a chakram. She can't even stop an arrow from coming at her. But she can fight very, very well with a stick. As time passes on, her personality changes too. Now she's more like grumpy at times, especially when it comes to Joxer. She will tell a person off. She's not scared to tell a god off. Like, she's having character development. And more and more she hangs out with Xena, more and more, the darkness in Gabrielle starts to come out. She's starting to see death a whole lot more. She has been involved in war. She has had to lead a man to his execution by tricking him. This is now changing her, and she doesn't know how to handle all this stuff. She doesn't know how to handle it at all. And what makes it even worse, their depiction of the devil implants her with his baby, and she turns on Xena. She gives birth to this evil, demonic godchild, and that's a lot for somebody to go through, especially a person who was literally just like a little girl not too long ago. At some point in time, they travel around the world, and she realizes Xena's way is not her way. She cannot fight no more. She is tired of killing. She is tired of losing people. She lost her husband. Yeah, she had a husband, because at some point in time, she got married, and he was murdered by Callisto, because Callisto only killed him because Gabrielle is Xena's friend, and she wanted to hurt Xena. So by hurting Gabrielle, that hurt Xena. So Gabrielle throws her staff away, and she now is on this spiritual, religious path in life. And that's when I really hated her character, because it got boring. And she dressed totally different because she was from another country and picked up their clothes. And so she is now spreading the word of Eli, and the word of Eli is their depiction of Jesus Christ, a person born man who dies for people's sins and turns into basically their God. So she does that for the longest time, and she will no longer punch, hit, nothing like that. She won't even hit nobody with a stick. She has this powder that she sprays in people's face as a distraction, and then she runs off. When Xena and them get to Rome, things take a turn for the worse. Xena turns paraplegic and is crucified. As Xena is on the ground because she can't move. Wait. This is before she got crucified. Something happened where Xena lost the ability to walk. I think Callisto was dead or in purgatory. She takes Xena's chakram, throws it at Xena's back, and it breaks her back. Gabrielle is starting to see that the Roman guard is about to kill Xena. Gabrielle has a major character development change in this. She turns dark. She picks up a sword and a knife, and she just starts killing soldiers left and right. We have never seen Gabrielle do this. We've only seen her kill once, and that was by mistake, at a reflex, because somebody was going to harm somebody, and she turned around and stabbed them. And that's haunted her for years, but this time she's just killing left and right. And then when she finally realizes what she does, she basically has a mini breakdown, and the guards get them. They kill her and Xena. She turns into an archangel. They get reborn, and then they're back in the world of the living. And when they return back to the world of the living, Gabrielle realizes that Xena's way is very dangerous, and she's gonna have to be on Xena's level if she's gonna have to protect people and protect the ones she loves. So Gabrielle now becomes a full-on warrior. She has bladed weapons aside. She spent so much time with Xena that she knows how to start tracking. She knows how to hunt. She knows how to anticipate when a situation's gonna go bad, and when people turning bad and she has to stop them. She has learned the way of the warrior. Also, Lucy was pregnant, so they needed somebody to do the action, and so they needed Gabrielle to do it. So Gabrielle is full-on warrior by season I think 4, and so 5, and so Gabrielle's kicking a whole lot of butt. And she is literally the warrior she wanted to be in the very first episode of season 1. And even in the very last episode, she has finally truly learned how to use a chakram properly. Something she's never been able to do. And, and it's that is the biggest character development growth I have ever seen in a TV show. Oh, also she turns into a bisexual lesbian towards the end. So that's even more character development right there. And it didn't come out the blue. Like, you can tell her and Zeno about to hook up at some point in time, but never did. Because they constantly talking about, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you, Gabrielle, oh, I love you, Zeno. So we knew it was coming. We just didn't know when it was coming. And one of the biggest hints was when Gabrielle was all like, when Zeno was pregnant, Gabrielle was not. And she's all like, Zena, I had a dream that me and you were both giving birth to your baby. Like, literally, their bodies merged as one, and they're both pushing this baby out there, you know what? And it's kind of like, what? Oh, by the way, Alex Kurtzman worked on Xena, I believe. I forgot what he did, but I forgot what his position was. So, Kurtzman's logic. But yes, my point in that very long-winded speech was, if the writers were to give Maggie character development like Gabrielle and not so much like Tilly, I believe people will like her more. And for the most part, like, people really have to stop holding Maggie accountable for season 3. She is now a changed woman coming into season 4. She is no longer that angry person that she was. She now fights for the greater good. It's kind of like a Loki kind of situation. I still consider Loki a villain. A lot of people love him only because they love the actor. But I mean, look what happened in Infinity. Not Infinity War. It's Infinity War. Loki still had the Tesseract. He should have destroyed it. If he would have destroyed it, Thanos would never taken over the world. And instead, he hid it and kept it because he still wanted to be on Thanos' side and not die. But then in that very last moment, when he sees Thanos is really going to take over the world and kill everything and everybody, Loki finally decides enough is enough, and I need to stop this guy. He tries to kill him, and Thanos snaps his neck. Now, why did Loki try to kill him? Could it be because Loki just didn't want to die with everybody else, and he wanted to live, and he was only looking out for his best interest? Who really knows? You know what I'm saying? And we will never really truly find out, because that version of Loki is dead, and now a new one is about to be created for the TV show. Because in their world, it's not alternate timeline, it's now new reality from a timeline being changed. But I now see what people are trying to say when Loki tried to have that moment of redemption. Having villains turn good is a good thing. They did it very well in Once Upon a Time. In Once Upon a Time, Regina and Rumpelstiltskin were as evil could be. And they shifted from evil to being good to shifting back to being evil and being good again. But they had very good character growth. We sympathized with them because we knew where they was coming from and why they was bad. And we sympathized with them more when they started to turn good. And if you can do that for those characters, why can't you do it for Maggie? And I get it. I get why y'all hate her because of the third season, but you can't just hold her accountable for that one season and one season only, because she had 2 other seasons to go and she was completely different. Now let's get on to the original reason why I was going to make this video of Maggie being a strong woman. If you hate that term, if you love that term, if it triggers you, you gotta admit, she was a strong woman. Now, I love TV, and I've watched a lot of TV, not so much movies, but a lot of TV, and there's been a lot of characters that I love, a lot of strong characters, both male and female, and there's been a lot of strong female characters that I have seen in the 90s and early 2000 area. And the great thing about those is that it was show, don't tell. We saw why they was bad to the bone. We saw why they could whoop somebody's butt. They didn't always have to tell us, which is now what Hollywood is doing now. I highly recommend checking out these shows because they are great. But like I said before, there have been so many great strong female characters, all the way from Xena, to Star Trek characters like Major Kira, to the Dark Angel lady, Max, from Legend of the Seeker, Queen of Swords, Team Knight Rider, like you name it, you know what I'm saying? And that's who Maggie was. Oh, don't even forget about Jen from Power Rangers Time Force. Jen was basically the leader of that squad, even though she wasn't Red Ranger. And that's who Maggie was. Maggie was the polar opposite of Wade. They knew Wade was a damsel in distress, so they decided not to make Maggie so much a damsel in distress, even though she has been captured. So yes, Maggie Beckett was not a damsel in distress, because when they introduced her character, they want her to be the polar opposite of what Wade character was. Wade was a very gentle soul, a very nice person. She had certain beliefs. She stood up for herself. She wasn't an angry person. She wasn't an action-packed person. She didn't dress like provocative or anything like that. She was basically the sweetheart girl next door that you could be friends with, that you grew up with as a child, and in later years, in your teen and adult years, and stuff like that. But when they introduced the Maggie character, they just said, oh, let's just do polar opposite thing. Let's just make her as tough as nails. Let's make her angry. Let's make her a sex symbol. Let's do that, because that's what they was going for in the third season. And when it comes to Maggie, so I was thinking, okay, why is she not dampening the stress? Well, I've already stated that Wade deserved better. Wade was always being kidnapped. Wade was always having to be rescued. And so I started to go through the episode list from all the seasons that Sabrina was in and see just how many times was Wade actually captured or her life put in jeopardy. Now, this is why I'm breaking it down to. The damsel in distress thing has to be this. Wade or a character has to be either locked into a room by the bad guy, tied to something, and is about to die, is held at gunpoint and taken to another location by the bad person, and they are literally going to shoot that person, or they're trapped in some kind of like cave or something, and some monster is going to like eat them or something like that. It can't be just, a random bad guy is spewing off some words and say, hey, I'm going to shoot you. It can't be that. It has to be literally like your life is truly in danger. You are kidnapped. You are captured, something like that. And this also pertains not just to the prime character, but to their duplicates as well. Because those are still the same character, just a different version of them. And as I was tallying that up, I realized something. I realized that Maggie and Wade, well, Wade has more than Maggie. Maggie was still captured because pretty much in every episode of Sliders, they're being chased by someone or something. And so a lot of people get captured a lot. And so I decided to tally up the guys, and this is how I did it. Wade from season 1 to 3, Maggie from season 3 to 5, Quinn from season 1 to 4, Rembrandt from season 1 to 4, because I just said screw season 5 because I only really watched that one time, and I don't really have that much of a regulation of it no more, because when I did my Sliders review for season 5, I had just watched that season, so everything was fresh in my mind. But because I only watched it in one viewing, unlike the other seasons, I don't remember like that much. Like I have like little vague pictures here and there in my head, or like from what I saved online, but that's about it. Because when I do this channel, believe it or not, like the reason why I don't sound all that professional is because, one, I want to talk to you like as though I'm talking to you in the room with you, chatting it up. Like people do like in a coffee house, something like that, or like a little nice setting. Also, everything I say comes from memory, like no joke. Like this is stuff I'm remembering from like years and years, and me, because I used to watch this show every night on DVD before the streaming services took over, and now I can't stop watching those. And them streaming shows is like, once you finish something, you always find something else to watch. Whether it's like an older show you used to watch, you just want to like recap on it, or it's just something completely new. And I miss my DVDs, because I have a lot of DVDs, and I miss my DVDs. So yeah, everything I'm telling you from like all these other videos, this is all from like actual memory and stuff, But for this whole capture thing, I decided to go on Wikipedia, look at the episode's name, and be like, okay, I remember this person got captured in this episode and that episode. That's how I did this. So where was I? Rembrandt from season 1 to 4, and the professor from 1 to 3. Colin, Diana, and Mallory, I just exempted for this list because they just really don't really matter, because it really wasn't on there for that long, only one season per person, so And I discovered that Rembrandt actually has been kidnapped way more times than, or held hostage more time than Wade has. He's at 25 with 70 episodes. Sabrina is the second highest with 22 and 49 episodes. Quinn is 21 with 70 episodes. Maggie is 17 with 48 episodes, and the professor is at 13 with 41 episodes. And so at first I really wasn't going to do the whole damsel in distress thing. I'm thinking like, well, that should be Rembrandt. But so then I thought, I'm going to shift gears to this. Sometimes they can kind of beat you over the head like a dead horse with it, where you get kind of tired of hearing it, you know. But yes, Maggie was a strong character female. I mean, the woman was tough as nails. She was a military officer in the Air Force. She had all that combat training. It's kind of like, it's just that they're trained to be focused. They're not trained to be like a silly goofball, you know, because when you're out in the field and you're acting like a goofball, you can get hurt and you can hurt other people, and that's not the point of serving your country and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, so I get why Maggie was like that. I get why she was so stern, so blunt, so forceful with a lot of these characters. Also, you gotta remember, she was also like an only child. She had no brothers and sisters, so she was used to getting her way. And her dad was in the military, and he ran that house like he was in boot camp, you know. So I get why she was that way, so like angry and forceful and stuff. But they overdid it to the point where she became unbearable, where she was like unlikable. But yeah, it's kind of like, back with the whole damsel in distress thing, she was captured way less than Wade. And a lot of times when she was rescued, she basically sometimes will rescue herself. With something Wade really never did. Wade always waited for other people to rescue her. Now in the third season, of course, the actress, she probably got tired of that, and she probably said, hey, you know, I'm kind of tired of being kind of like this weak little character. And so I remember in Paradise Lost, she got captured. She actually freed herself in a very good way, and then she ran out the house and got recaptured. But then she got rescued by the guys when they showed up. And it's kind of like Maggie was really never really like that. Maggie was kind of like the type of person that even when captured, she would still argue with the people that captured her and stuff. And that right there is pretty ballsy, because if you argue with a person who captured you and you piss them off, they'll pretty much just point blank you in the head and let that be that, you know. And she never let that get down, and she knew Rickman was tougher than her and more skilled than her, because he trained her and he's been in the service a whole lot longer. But she was still willing to take this dude on after he killed her husband. And but like I said before, they kind of like overdid it to the point where she was just unbearable. Like that third season of her, like she was a raging blank. You know what I'm saying? Like people just did not like her. But one thing about her that was kind of cool is she always stood up for herself. She wasn't gonna let nobody put her down physically or mentally. And you know, a lot of people kind of have to be that way. Like, it's good to be passive, it's good to turn the other cheek, but sometimes when you turn the cheek like way too many times and people start to see that and they exploit it and they start to put you down way more, sometimes you gotta stand on your own 2 feet, plant them, and just knock them out, you know, to get another message across. Because sometimes when you're back behind that corner, sometimes you have to defend yourself, because if you don't, then you become kind of like this soft, weak, kind of wet blanket kind of type of a person, and you never learn to like really stand up for oneself. From season 1 and 2, Wade was pretty much just laid back, and the first season she was like fun going, and then we started to see her beliefs and what she stands up for. And she would stand up for herself in a verbal kind of way, but never really in a physical kind of way. And then by the time you get into the second season, kind of like Rembrandt, she kind of just goes with the motions, you know, because she knows she's never going to get home. And so it's kind of like in the second season, we saw her get kidnapped a lot. And I mean a lot. That's why her tally marks went up so high, because she got kidnapped a lot in the second season and the third season. Mainly in the third season. The third season, they just like, screw you, you know what I'm saying? And you're just going to be a damsel in distress, and you're just going to be rescued by the men and stuff like that. But also in that third season, she starts to like fight back a little bit, the Wade character. She kind of like one time, I think, what was it, Paradise Lost, and they was in a cave and they were having that giant slug they had to defeat, and Quinn's all like, if you can't handle this, I'll do it for you. And she's all like, I got this. Like, she literally tells him, I got this. And he keeps trying to tell her, like, look, if you're scared or you this and that, and she's like, look, I got this and everything, because she's realizing that, especially after like he's been sliding for a certain amount of time, and she's realizing that anything can happen. They could be separated. She can't rely on people to save her and rescue her. So she gotta do it herself, like in Paradise Lost. But in the Amish like episode they was in, yeah, I mean, dude, they made her into like a housewife slave, which was so wrong. Then when she didn't follow orders like a good little woman, they drowned her. And who rescued her? Quinn. So it's kind of like what I said before in the Wade video, they did Wade wrong. So when they created a Maggie character, they decided to do the complete opposite. So now here comes the fourth season of why I believe Maggie started to be a better character in the Wade. She had Wade kindness. She had Wade's empathy. She had Wade's wisdom of sliding. She had Wade's compassion now. But she also had her flippant mouth. She was sharp-tongued. She would still sass you. She would still be sarcastic towards you. She would still tell you, I'm going to take this thing and shove it up your you-know-what type of attitude. And we actually got to see more of her hand-to-hand combat stuff in season 4, because that was kind of weird in season 3. We never really saw that. Mainly it was just her with a gun and shooting it, but we never actually saw her like hit and punch people that much until season 4. And so yeah, her character became kind of like not so much Quinn in the third season when he became like Superman and stuff, but she put all that good military training to use. And that's something Wade's never really done. Like Wade, I think, has only like punched people 1 or 2 times, and they never really stayed down. Unlike the Professor, Rembrandt, or Quinn with that one punch type power. And normally when you see Wade knock somebody out, it was always with like some type of like some blunt, intimate like type thing. Like it was how she picked up a glass vase and she hit somebody in the head with it. But like the Maggie character was always kind of like, when she went into that Wade protective mode, she understood like the values of why she's a military officer. In the military, you're supposed to protect one's country. And when in the 4th season, she realized, that whole 3rd season of being a loner, being this lone wolf of let me go on my own and kill Ripman and y'all just do whatever you want, or give me the slider and I will leave you on this world and maybe I'll come back for you. And in the 4th season, she realized now that her world is gone. Just one great example of that is when that one episode with the psychics, Isaac Haynes was in there, and Wade was taken prisoner by this dude who she fell in love with, and he fell in love with her. And she didn't even fight her way out. She verbally fought her way out of that, like told that guy off and stuff. But she was still a prisoner in his house. And it was the help of the guys that helped her escape there twice. And it's kind of like, why didn't she fight back? Why she didn't pick up a blunt instrument and knock this dude out? And that's because that's just not how Wade was. Let's do those seasons. Fixaroo. Let's fix season 3 of Maggie. Would have been a season 4 or 5 of season Maggie. It's pretty nice. It's pretty spot on. She's pretty perfect. And
I
Season
like that
3 is
aspect about
unbearable.
her.
So let us
I
fix
like
this
that they made
woman,
her
shall we?
tough. I don't like how they made her so
First
unbearable
things
to the
first,
point where so many
let's
people
keep
hated
the
her in the
fact that
third
she
season.
had an affair with Rickman and cheated on her husband. Let's keep that. Let's keep that as the only time she's ever cheated on her husband, and that was the worst thing she could have ever done. It caused problems in her marriage. It was to the point where they were about to divorce. Let's pretend like all of that happened, which it didn't happen on the show. They never divorced. But let's pretend and say that they was having problems, and they was having problems by the time the sliders come in. And Maggie is a soldier through and through. She's gonna listen to her boss, and she's not gonna disobey orders. And because she had an affair with him, she's not gonna disobey him. But she knows he's a bad guy. Let it be to where she starts to suspect there's something strange going on with him about this whole sliding thing in the pulsars. And let us pretend like instead of working so much against the sliders, she works with them to try to figure out this mystery. The whole love thing between her and Quinn, let's just erase that. That's never happened. Plus, she was married and her husband was paraplegic. So for her to have wandering eyes, that was just really messed up of her. And they should never have written that. It made her look like a slut or some type of whore. And that ruined the character of Maggie and put like a really bad taste in folks' mouth. And then it put even worse taste in people's mouth when Quinn had an attraction to her. And this attraction lasted all the way to the end of season 4. And it's kind of like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you have Wade right here. You can have her. And if you don't want her, you can just have whatever woman you want when you slide. Why are you doing this, Quinn? You know? So I would erase that from her. As for the whole Rickman killing her husband and her wanting revenge, I would keep her wanting revenge, but I wouldn't do it to the point where she's just so like buck crazy wild and just wanting to kill him and not thinking about those that are around her. Cause that's literally all. Cause like, what is she gonna do when she finds him? You know, when she's on this other world, is she gonna murder him in front of all these people? But she has tried to do, and it's kind of like these other worlds have different rules of law, and it's like just say like skipping's not allowed in that world. Well, what do you think is gonna happen if she kills this man? You know what I'm saying? Does she really want to spend the rest of her life like in a jail or murder or executed or something? What she should have did was that she should have worked with the sliders to find Rickman. As soon as they found him, they should have slid back to that world, the dinosaur world, where their people are. Because remember, her planet got destroyed, and they slid to another world with dinosaurs. She should have took him back there, and then the people of that world should have tried him, imprisoned him. Then, if she wanted to, she can continue with the sliders or stay on that dinosaur world. Another thing I would change is I would have her be less angry towards Wade. It's okay for them to have a little bickering here and there, because you know that's what people do. But I wouldn't be to the point where it made her look like a bully in elementary school, and that's basically what Maggie was. She acted like a bully towards Wade. She looked at Wade as this weak person who she can intimidate. Another thing I would do to fix her is I would show the struggle she's having with the death of her husband. Being angry all the time just isn't good. Even Batman looks a little sad and sheds a little tear from time to time when he thinks about his parents. They should have done that too. They should have gave her some empathy, some emotion to show that she had a heart and just not darkness inside her. I will also take away the slut aspect of the Maggie Beckett character. Having her dressed in all those skimpy, spandexy outfits was just really pointless. Yeah, I mean, sure, it was nice to look at. Don't get me wrong, because I'm a man. I like looking at that stuff. But, you know, what purpose did it really serve to that show? it didn't serve no purpose whatsoever, because when you're having a serious situation and she's dressed in the tightest span that she can, it's very distracting. It's very distracting indeed. So those are the things I would fix with her character. And I have to bring up something I talked to with a person that commented. She compared Maggie Beckett to 7 and 9 in Star Trek. I totally agree. I totally agree. I totally agree. Now, I told the person I disagree with her with a certain extent, and there's a reason for that. Now, for those of you that do not know, Star Trek Voyager, in my opinion, was a very good show. It is my second favorite Star Trek show next to Next Generation, because it embodied what Gene Roddenberry envisioned: exploration. And that's how the show started off. When 7 and 9 came on, just like with Deep Space Nine, towards its fourth season, it completely changed and it became a certain aspect of what Starfleet is about. Deep Space Nine became a war show. Star Trek Voyager became the science show. And I love science. And that's something you really don't get to see in TNG, because the writers don't like the whole Trek babble, I think they call it. The scientific aspect, because it's hard. And it's hard for them to say. But I love when 7 and 9 came on, because it brought on the more scientific aspect of Star Trek. The problem with the 7 and 9 character is, well, okay. The first 3 seasons were struggling. They wanted to make Captain Janeway more of a sexual type person, have her flirt more, have her start a relationship with Chakotay. The actress Kate Mulgrew said, no, this is not going to happen. This is not who Janeway is. I am the first female captain on a Star Trek TV show to get her own show. Making her into a floozy is not a good message to send. My character has more conviction than that, and I'm just not going to do that. So they tried it with another character, Kes. When Kes started off, she had the short hair, and she always wore a dress. Her dress had these stockings on it that matched her dress, so you couldn't see no skin really. In the 3rd season, they changed that. Kes wore a catsuit. Kes had long flowing hair. They tried to bring out more Kes's sex appeal. Now, the show was still struggling. They wanted to boost ratings. They wanted to take Star Trek back to the days of women dressing skimpy. And it wasn't going to work out with them when it came to Jennifer, the actress who played Kes. So they was going to kill off a character on the show and bring in this new character on the show. They were originally going to kill off, I think his name is Garrett Wang, who played Ensign Kim. But he was voted the most sexiest man one of the sexiest men of that era. So since women thought he had sex appeal, they decided, okay, we're going to keep you. But they didn't do nothing with his character. He was one of the most least developed characters next to Neelix. And the dude remained an ensign for all 7 years of that show. And in Star Trek history, you only stay an ensign for 4 years, stated by Data, and then you become a lieutenant. So for him to be an ensign for 7 years, and the rest of the crew that was under him, because he was a bridge officer, that was kind of weird. Now, they had to kill off a character. They killed off Kes. They claim it's because they could never figure out nothing to do with her character. Part of that is true. When you watch the show, her character, they tried to do stuff with her, and it was kind of cool, but it was never really cool in a major kind of way. If it was true they wanted to kill off a character they couldn't do nothing with, it should have been Neelix. Because Neelix really didn't serve a purpose on that ship. He had a lot of stuff handed to him only because he lived in that quadrant. He was the most non-Star Trek character at that time because of how silly and smiley and goofy he was. But before he started off, he was kind of grumpy and mean, and he dated a woman who was basically 1 year old in alien terms. So the Neelix is like a really least favorite character, and he was the least favorite character of mine. But I will admit, in that last season, when he left the show and he didn't get to go to the Alpha Quadrant, it choked me up. I got sad because it's kind of like the dude works. The dude, all he wanted to do was leave his quadrant, go to the Alpha Quadrant, better his life, and he bettered his life on Voyager. And even though he bettered his life on Voyager, he didn't make it to his goal of getting to the Alpha Quadrant. So that was sad. And the thing that I really agree about is that when they brought Jerry on as 7 of 9, the other characters' roles got smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where they were like shoehorned into the show. B'Elanna is like the smartest person on the show because she's the engineer, and we barely saw B'Elanna. Her character development was sporadic through the rest of the seasons, but she still had character development because she was involved with Tom, and she hated half of her race because she's half Klingon, half human. So at least she got some storylines out of that. But other than that, the whole show just focused on 7. And I mean, Chakotay, he was like this really stern, like a bit of an abrasive person in the first season. And then he became like a lighter character in the second season, a nicer person. And then by the time 7 showed up, like he barely had any storylines, and he's the first officer. The only person who really got any good screen time when 7 came on there was the captain and Tom. And what made matters worse is that they put her in the like skimpiest outfit ever. Like they put her in a spandex type suit or a tight like leather suit that showed off her curvaceous figure, and that really upset a lot of the people that watched it. It didn't upset me, but I get why like people was upset, because it's kind of like they went back to that old Star Trek trope of just having women wear like these like skimpy outfits from like the original series and a little bit of TNG. They was worried more about sex appeal than they was about the actual show. And one of the people that put her in that outfit was a producer who fought tooth and nails to get Counselor Troy out of her cat suit and put her in a Starfleet uniform, but then put Jerry in a cat suit because they really wanted to boost ratings, because the only really good ratings they had was in the first episode. This has been like documented plenty of times, and after that ratings dropped. And one reason why the ratings dropped in the first season is because Rick Berman, okay, the dude's like the devil of Star Trek. He made a good show, but he had problems. And one of the problems he had was he had the entire Voyager crew talk very stiff and robotic in the first season. And it's like, people don't talk like that. So by the second season, they loosened up a little bit more, but still kept that Star Trek mentality of their in their voice. And I get what he was trying to do. I get he was trying to like show that these people are evolved in the 24th century, something that Gene wanted. But you can't have people talking like that because they're gonna sound like a bunch of robots or a bunch of Vulcans. And Jerry was a very controversial person on that show, both with fans and with people on that show, because one of her biggest haters on that show was the captain herself, Kate Mulgrew. Like, I'm gonna put a little bit of pin in that a little bit later when it comes to Kate, but pretty much Kate bullied her on set. Like, no joke. Like, it got revealed, I think Jerry kind of spilled the beans a little bit, but she didn't say who. And then Garrett actually spilled the beans while both of them was in the room in the convention. And that video is on YouTube somewhere. And so like basically it was like this: Kate did not want Jerry on the show. Kate liked Jennifer. Kate liked the idea of these strong female characters and her captain being like the first female captain on the Star Trek show, because females in the past in Star Trek were not treated very good. Let's just say that. Not the characters, not the actresses. Some got fired, some quit, some was sexualized, and then like other ones barely got any screen time. And other ones just said, "Captain, I'm scared," because they was in the 60s, you know. So Kate really loved this idea of being a role model to all these like young little girls, and she thought having a woman on here only because of her like chest size and butt size would diminish everything she worked for. They tried to make Kate a little bit like floozier. They tried to make her in a relationship with Chakotay. She didn't want none of that. And so she made sure she made Jerry's life like crap on that show. Like, okay, Jerry said it takes a long time for her to get in her costume because it's so skin tight. And she can't go to the bathroom in her outfit. Well, when she had to use the restroom, Kate would not let her go. Kate was like, no, we're going to keep shooting because, it takes so many hours to shoot. And it was just like all kind of stuff. Like, they really didn't go into too much detail of what Kate did. But yeah, it was terrible to the point where Jerry was like literally crying in between takes, and that upset a lot of the crew. Like Garrett, who literally bust out crying in that convention when he spilled the beans because he saw this happening, and there was nothing he could do because he knew if he would try to intervene, then he would get fired. What was it? But those two are like totally fine now. They've reconciled. You know, she's apologized and she realized what she did was wrong. And I mean, I get why she did it. She just didn't have to do it. You know what I'm saying? What made matters worse is that when Jerry got on the show, she started dating one of the producers. I think it's Brandon Braga. And yeah, like, you don't date your producer. That just makes you look guilty. That's kind of like when that Twilight girl dated her producer while she was dating her co-star from Twilight. That just looks bad. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying like Jerry's a bad woman or like that, but it's just like that doesn't look good on the resume. But now, Jerry's back on Star Trek with Star Trek Picard, and she wears a completely different outfit now. She wears like regular clothes. And, because Star Trek is once again moved on and like evolved, and they went away from that Gene Roddenberry's like vision, and and trying to like get viewers. I remember like with Star Trek Enterprise, they brought in yet again another like curvaceous woman, and they put her in a cat suit. And what made it so weird is this character was Vulcan, and Vulcans aren't known for dressing like that. And I think Voyager became a whole lot more interesting when they brought on Seven because of the whole science aspect. And also kind of what made matters a little bit worse with the whole Jerry thing was that originally the woman who played Callisto in Xena, she auditioned for it. And when you look at her and Jerry look very similar, and she was very close to getting the role, but Jerry beat her out. So it is kind of interesting what Hudson like would be like if she nabbed the role of 7 to 9. Honestly, right now, because Jerry was so good in that role, like she really was good in that role, like, and it's kind of like I just don't see nobody else being 7 to 9 but Jerry Ryan. But yeah, and then also the person brought up the whole Chakotay like relationship between her and Seven, and like, or him and Seven, and that made no sense whatsoever. And that's the one thing about 7 to 9. They give her like these relationships that come out of like nowhere, like absolutely nowhere, and she's had a couple of them. I think she should have ended up with Harry, because at least he had a crush on her and he was smart, and she was shown that she liked smart men. She liked Lieutenant Kaplan, and oh no, Lieutenant Chaplin. Was it Chapman, Kaplan? I don't know. It's been a while. But yeah, she liked him because they went on a away mission together and he seemed efficient. Then she messed their date up because she don't know how to act human because she's been Borg all her life. And then next thing you know, towards the end of like the series, they hook her up with Chakotay. And that was just the strangest thing ever, because it completely came out of nowhere. There was no build up whatsoever. And not, age has nothing to do with it, but you gotta remember, Chakotay was a much, much, much older man than her, and she was basically like a child in an adult's body because she's been like she was a child human, and then she got assimilated as the Borg as a child, and so she doesn't know anything but being Borg. And she was like, her character was in her early 20s, and he had to have been late 30s, close to 40s and stuff. And it just, like I said, age doesn't matter, but it just made no sense.
Then when they got to Star Trek Picard, it's now revealed that 7 of 9 is bisexual. And there's no problem with that, but, you know, she had a relationship with this bad person who she later killed. And so it's like that relationship was never really explored because that happened all off screen. And then they pulled another Chakotay move with the Raffi character, and at the very last episode, one of the very last scenes, we see her and Seven, or Raffi and Seven, holding hands, and they kept looking at each other with like googly eyes, and it's kind of like, where did this come from? Because at least with Chakotay, she talked to Chakotay, but with Raffi, those two have never spoken on screen. Like, not even once. They was in the same room with each other a couple of times when everybody else is in the room and everybody else is talking, and so that's about it. But these two have never said anything to each other. These two have never been in the room alone with each other. So, and then not only that, but they didn't even spend much time together, because when Seven did come on the ship, she didn't stay on there that long, because then she went to go find this one. Oh, by the way, Seven's a murderer now. Basically, they did. You screw with her, you screw with the people she loves, she will get revenge and kill you now. This is who 7 of 9 is because of Kurtzman's logic. He saw one episode of her where she was upset and wanted revenge on somebody. So he's like, oh, okay, well, let's make her like this now. So she's no longer in Starfleet. When you piss her off, she wants to murder you. So, yeah. 7 didn't even stay on the show that long in the beginning because she left to go to the Borg cube. And so, like, while she was having her own little adventure in other episodes, her and Raffi was having her own adventures with Picard and everybody else. And so these two never had, like, no screen time whatsoever. And then when 7 did rejoin with Picard and his new crew, once again, no screen time with these two. They never talked. So it's kind of like, because they were doing their own thing. And it's kind of like, when did these two hook up? When did these two realize they like each other? It literally just came out of nowhere. Nowhere. That's not character development. That's not like good storytelling. That's not even good LGBT like representation. They're just like, hey, there's two girls, and hey, let's hook them up. And plus, not only that, but people didn't really know that Raffi was even like a lesbian or a bi, because she has a son. So nobody even knew she was that way. So it made no sense. But yeah, as much as I love the Wade character, I love the Maggie character for being like a bit of the opposite. I love that little toughness that she had. She just showed too much toughness, in my opinion. And that's why a lot of people just really hate her character. But I do feel like she is, like, you know, a tough person, a strong woman. I feel she's not a damsel in distress. Because she doesn't always have to be rescued by other people. Sometimes she does. And, you know, and then she returns the favor. And so I like that aspect of her. I just really wish they would have wrote her so much better in the 3rd season, because they made her an unlikable person. And they can have an antagonist, that's fine in the group, but at some point that antagonist is gonna have to turn, and it took her too long to turn because they had to wait till the next season when the other actress, who was like the shining light, who was that sweetheart, left the show. Now for the last topic at hand, the most controversial one at all, the actress who played Maggie Beckett, Kari Wuhrer. Like, I knew people hated the Maggie character. Like, don't get me wrong, I hate her in season 3. I can't stand Maggie in season 3. But I never knew just like how much people hated her and how much people hated the actress who played her. Like, I knew some people from YouTube comments I read on other YouTube channels of interviews she did. Like, a lot of people just don't like her. There are a lot of people don't like her acting, which I like her acting. I've always thought her acting was been pretty solid. There have been a few times when she delivered her lines and I'm just like, you know, you could have delivered that line a bit better, or probably not make that facial expression at that time. But after yesterday I was reading a comment, I was telling somebody, you know, I was looking for this video of an interview she did, because like the actress,
don't know really nothing about this actress, only what I hear and only what she says and only what I read and quotes that she has made. And I remember I watched a late night video of this guy, I can't remember his name, but he had this late show on CBS. And then after he left, Craig Ferguson took over, and then James Corbin took over. So it's that interview, and I'll link it below, and I'll link the Conan interview because I just now for the first time watched that, and whew, now I know why it's titled that way. And this is why I think she's a pretty good actress, because if you watch Kari Wuhrer in any type of interview she's done, like in the past, I'm talking about like past, like 90s, early 2000s, like she was not kidding when she said, you know, she was like a wild person back in the day, you know. Like in these interviews, she's very sporadic, she's very like cheerful, she's very like silly. She like, it's almost like, I'm not trying to shade her, it's almost like she has like, what's that thing called, ADHD or something like that, or and sometimes it looks like she's tipsy. Like she's like very like out there in her interviews and very expressionate, and it's like when you see like watch her interviews and then you actually see her in movies and TV shows, you will see, yeah, she's a good actress because she can turn off that silliness and that like happiness in like a heartbeat and get into a character that's either very sincere or a character that's very like angry and tough and stuff like that. So it's like, I do think she's a good actress, but I do get why some people like feel that she's not, and I get why some people dislike her, mainly because of the whole Wade situation, or Sabrina situation I should say, because from what rumors have said circulated online, she was the main cause of Sabrina leaving. And you know, she replaced the professor, and people love the professor, but you know, the reason why the professor and the actor got replaced is because behind the scenes his mouth got him in trouble. You know, in fact, his mouth still gets him in trouble till this day and stuff. I remember I was reading an article about him a few years ago, and it's like, he's a great actor and he's very wise, but it's kind of like when a dude gets angry, he lets you know like how he feels, and he don't care who you are. And that's exactly what happened back in the Slider days, and I totally justify his anger on Sliders because the man was right. You know, this show could have been so much better, but then by that third season they went in a completely different route. Like, they butchered that show. I mean, some of the episodes, yeah, are still pretty good in the third season, but it was just so bizarre with all this like movie Hollywood like creature crap, and it totally deviated from what Sliders was. I mean, yeah, parallel dimensions. I mean, yeah, you'll see like a monster here and there, but you wouldn't expect it to see like in every episode, and every episode be a ripoff of a movie, and a classic movie at that. So the man was totally justified for his anger, but sadly, you know, in the world of Hollywood and TV and the industry, you have to be somewhat professional. You can't always speak your mind. Like, it's gonna backfire. Like, look.
Now, I do think she's a good actress. Like, you know, I mean, there are times where her acting could use a little bit of polish. Like I said before, she could have said a line a little bit better, but I do think she was consistent throughout the entire series. And she acted a whole lot better than the dude who played Colin, let's admit it, because his acting was inconsistent throughout the entire fourth season. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was cringy, and sometimes it was just really bad. But when it comes to her acting, I will admit, like, that one episode, the drug episode, she could have been a whole lot better. And after seeing her in a video where she looked tipsy, she should have known how to act high. You know, like, that shouldn't have been that hard for her to do and stuff. And it's kind of like one of those things where she probably wasn't prepared for, probably was nervous for, and the director probably didn't coach her better. And that's one thing about acting, like, it's not just people who are bad actors. There's a lot of, like, her acting is like, it's a whole lot better than some people in Hollywood. And I've asked myself, why? Why do these people keep getting hired? They're not very good. And some people are just literally a plank of wood. But, you know, a lot of the acting has to do with the writer and the director. If your writer doesn't give you no good material, how are you supposed to act off on it? If your director doesn't push you to your limit, how are you supposed to improve, you know? Back to one of my pins, Sonequa Martin Green. I like her. I first saw her on Once Upon a Time as the villain. She was great. I saw her on The Walking Dead. She was great. Then I saw her on Star Trek, and I'm just like, hey, what happened to your acting? Because it's kind of like, it's weird. It's like, she doesn't talk like people on Star Trek, which now new Trek is modern Trek, so people talk modern. And it's kind of like, her acting is okay on the show. It's just sometimes she tries too hard. Sometimes she tries too little. Sometimes she doesn't nail it. And other times she just, like, I don't know, like, her best roles is when she playing villainous. When she was in the Mirror episode, I love that. They finally gave her something to sink her teeth into. But with, like, Star Trek, she's always missing that mark just slightly, because she's not used to Star Trek. She's used to, like, other TV shows and stuff, like other dramas, and you know, Star Trek exposed that kink in her acting armor. You know, take the cast of Wizards of Waverly Place. I love that show. I love the cast, but when you're doing a Disney show, Disney stars acting, I always assume was never that good, because they have to work on the fly. The directors really just don't care, and it's kind of like, the sillier the better when it comes to Disney. But then the cast did the first movie, and all of their acting, every single last one of them, was a whole lot better. And I'm just like, well, who are these people? Because, you know, when you're on the show, your acting is just okay. And now all of a sudden, it's like 10 times better. And that's because now they have a director who is going to make them do take after take until they get it right. And that's exactly how it should be. But sometimes on a TV show, you can't do that because you run out of film, you know? So, yeah. Another thing about her acting, okay, I've never seen any of her movies because they're B-list movies. I've never even heard of them. I didn't even know she was doing movies. The only movie I saw was Anaconda, and she had a small role, and she was like, okay, like it could have been better, you know what I'm saying? But I've never seen her movies. Now, her movies are on YouTube. I do plan on watching them because I am very curious. With that said, in the acting world, what I have observed is that just because you're a TV star doesn't mean you're going to make it in the movies, because TV acting is different than movie acting. That sounds weird, but it's true. Let me explain the different levels of acting and why people can't transition into one of another. Okay, so first, let me summarize this article I read about her. I can't post the article because it's on one of those websites where if you don't subscribe, they block like this huge like barrier around the page, so you can't read nothing. But I was able to copy and paste really fast, so I'll put that in the description. Basically, she said is that she does not like watching award shows, seeing all these like A-list stars win these awards, because it upsets her, because she feels as though she has never made it in Hollywood. She doesn't understand why people don't know her name. It really bothers her that she never had that breakout movie role that made her like an A-list star. She considers herself an A-list, B-list star because she starred in a lot of B-list movies. Like I said, I've never seen her movie, so it's like, okay. It's hard to transition from one type of acting to another. Sometimes it seems like it might not, but it really is. Now, the different levels of acting. Theater, the longest one there is. The oldest acting there is theater. TV, the second oldest. Movies, the third oldest. Reality TV acting, sketch comedy acting, and web acting. Now, web acting, I don't mean like a show on Netflix. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these like online personality, people from YouTube, Vine, Vimeo, Daily Motion, now TikTok, whatever the heck this crap is that needs to go away. You know, that type of acting and those type of stars. Now, theater acting. Theater acting, you're in a small space with a lot of people around, and you have to be able to convey your voice throughout that entire building for everybody to hear. Your words has to be precise. You have to command a certain dominance. You have to give a lot of emotion just with your words alone and your presence when people are looking at you. If you cannot command that dominance, then, you know, it's not just going to work out for you. Plain and simple as that. Like, you have to convey that in your acting ability, more so in your voice than you do in your presence and your physical attributes. And that's why, like, a lot of people in theater, they really don't go to TV that much. But some do, and some can make it very well. Patrick Stewart is one of those people. Ian McKellen is one of those people. TV acting. Now, TV acting, once again, you're in a small space, but it's a little bit bigger than that of a theater. With that, you have tons of people around you you're acting alongside. So you don't really always have to be the center of attention. Other people can also carry the show. Because other people are carrying the show, say you're not the lead, right? Say you're a co-star or a recurring character or something like that. Because you're not having to carry the whole show on your shoulders, you have a little bit more of a break. You have more ease. Also, you have to remember that you have different writers and different directors coming in. So say one episode you do, or maybe one season you do, isn't that great. Well, you got other seasons and other episodes to improve on that, and your writers and your new directors are going to help you improve on that. You're going to have that one director or writer who just doesn't care and just gives you crap, and therefore your acting ability won't be that great. And then you're going to have that one director and that one writer that is going to give crap, and they're going to push you to your limit until you give that performance that will give you that, like, Emmy award. Now, a lot of people who are in TV cannot transition very well into movies. If this is the case with Kari, then she should have stayed more on TV and not worry about movie. Because the thing about movie acting is very similar to TV acting. The problem with that is that you're in a bigger space. You have more elbow room. You film on location a whole lot more. But one problem you have is that you have that one director, that one second unit director, and maybe 1 or 2, 3, 4 at the most writers. With TV shows, like I said, it's more relaxed. Sometimes it's working on the fly. So when you don't nail that certain performance, it's okay. In a movie, you have to nail every performance. If you don't, your movie's gonna flop. They're gonna look at you as a bad actor or actress, and that's pretty much gonna be the end of your career. If you do not choose the right movies, then you're not gonna have no success in Hollywood. And a lot of TV stars have found this out. Tom Welling from Smallville is one of those people. He started off as a model, like many other people do. He went into TV. He became a success overnight with his TV show. Then he started to dip his toes in the movies. Those movies did not do very well. And it exposed his level of acting not being where it needed to be. And as simple as that. And that's some things that a lot of TV stars don't realize when they try to go over the movies. Another extremely good example is Emilia Clarke. Now, I like her. She's cool. I saw the first season of Game of Thrones. Emilia Clarke. People love her to death. You know, people love her character. I thought she did a good job in that first season that I watched. I have never seen her in a movie. Never. She doesn't star in the type of movies that I really will watch. I want to see the Terminator one, but I heard that did bad. I want to see the Solo movie. I heard that did worse. Um, the problem with her, I don't know if it's her. When it comes to her not being a big movie star, I don't know that because I've never seen her acting outside of Game of Thrones. I've never seen her acting in a movie. All I know is this: every single last movie she has done has either flopped or had mixed reviews. Not one single one has been a success. Hollywood's gonna look at that as, okay, either it's your movies that you're picking or it's you. And at some point in time, they're gonna stop hiring her in these movies. And I get why Hollywood directors cast people on TV. If you're popular, you get put in these movies. Let's get to the one type of acting I hate the most. Well, second most, I guess you could say. Reality TV. Reality TV is simple. You just be yourself. And you like heighten your personality like by 100. And the more like vicious you are on TV, the better the ratings. That's reality TV. There is no acting to it. There's nothing whatsoever to it. It's like you're just being yourself. So for some bizarre reason, these people on reality TV think they can be TV stars. You can't. They think they can be movie stars. You can't. And it's just not the people from the main reality shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians. It's smaller reality TV show people too, like people from Big Brother. Oh, it's another type of acting I forgot about. But let me get back to the web thing. The web people, they're very inexperienced. Very, very, very inexperienced. And a lot of them get booked on like real TV shows or even web series, like real web series, like, you know, something you'll see on Netflix. There's a show called Guidance. You know, I like this show. I think the show is very well written. I think the storylines keep you engaged. Although the first season wasn't really that great, but the second and third was really, really good. It's on Hulu. Like I said, the storylines will keep you engaged. And not only that, but they're taken from real world events and making them into reality, which a lot of shows do. So, you know, so that's great. They're getting that awareness out, the representation out. The only problem I have with that show is nobody can really act on that show. There are a few exceptions, but that's just about it. And the reason why people can't act on this is because they're YouTube people, they're dancers, they're web personality, they're singers. They don't know what they're doing, and you know, and they need to go to acting school. You just can't wake up, be like, okay, I'm gonna be a movie star, and that does not work that way. You have to go get go to acting class, get yourself an acting tutor, and then you have to start off small in like theater and TV and work your way up. And they're taking roles from people who really deserve this, and this is really pissing me off. The other kind of acting that I forgot about is voice acting. Voice acting is simple. You just use your voice. There you go. You have to be able to convey a lot of emotion with your voice, a lot of depth with your voice, and you can't sound bland. And because it's all voice acting, you don't rely on your facial expressions. That is the problem that a lot of people have when they try live action. Their facial expressions are never really there. And when they realize their facial expressions are never there, then their voices don't become there when they do live action. And it comes off as awkward. Now, sketch comedy acting. This is the touchier one. It's similar to theater. You have to do everything you do when you do in theater, but you have to be funny. And with these sketch people, they rely on crazy facial expressions. Some of them look into the camera. Other ones are reading off like teleprompters. But one thing they do well is improv, and one thing they do well is remembering their lines, except for those that have to read off the teleprompter. And a lot of these sketch comedy actors, either they make it or they don't, and they end up either disappearing or they end up on late night TV. Just because you people love you on SNL because you're awkward on the show, or you're silly on the show, or you shout out all your lines, that's not going to convey well on TV and in movies. And the cast of the female-led Ghostbusters found that out the hard way. If you are not properly trained in TV or movies, you're not going to transition very well coming off of something like SNL. So I think when it comes to Kari, I know she's upset she never had her big break, but she was looking for her big break in the wrong places. Like I said, I haven't seen her movies. If her acting truly is bad when it comes to movies, then she should have relegated herself to just TV only. That's how she started off. She started off on MTV. She slowly worked her way up in the TV show, making guest appearance. She was on the original Swamp Thing show. She was on a few episodes of Married with Children. She was on 90210, which I don't even remember seeing her on there. So where was she? I think she should have stayed like in TV and worked her way up. Her biggest break till this day is Sliders. And if Sliders would have lasted longer, you know, people probably would remember her more. And it's not just being on that show. I mean, if you're going to be on a show, you have to behave yourself. You can't act wild. You can't act crazy. And that's something I've noticed with her when it comes to the interviews she does. Like I said, the reason why I think she can act is because when you watch her in these interviews, she's a completely different person. And if she is this wild, crazy person, which I do believe she, really was back in the day, she should have toned herself down. She should have matured more. She should have calmed down. And she should never have pissed off her co-stars. She should never pissed off Sabrina. Sabrina leaving was the last straw for a lot of people. And they have held that against Kari for that, And I believe the show would have lasted a bit longer because that fourth season was very good on sci-fi. They went a little bit more in the sci-fi scientific route. And that was totally okay. But when that show got to its fifth season, the only original star on there was the dude who played Rembrandt. And Maggie is kind of an original character, but not really because she came in the third season. So it's kind of like when you lose the professor, you lose Wade, you lose Quinn because the actor decided he was going to leave. You lost nearly your entire original cast. And I love the dude who plays Rembrandt. He's like the coolest, like one of the coolest actors there is. But his character was, like I said before, was the outsider looking in. He didn't know anything about sliding technology. He was a great character. He was very compassionate. But, his character alone just was not enough to carry the show. And neither was her character, because people were still holding grudges towards the Maggie character. She would be more recognized for that role in a better light. And then she could have worked her way up into movies and stuff. And another reason why her movie career didn't go the way it did, because she picked really bad roles. I've never seen Eight-Legged Freaks, but it's a cult classic now, but back then it wasn't. And as for Sharknado is Sharknado, I mean, when that movie first came out, people thought it was the dumbest thing in the world, and it was terrible. It was cringy. But it became a cult classic overnight and a hit because it sucks so much you love it. I've never watched it, but that's the tagline, It's so bad, it's good, So when it comes to Kari and her acting, that's why I stand on that. I do think she's good. I don't think she's great. Like, she's not the greatest actress in the world, like some other people I like. I mean, look at Julia Butters from American Housewife. Julia, I call her Butters because that's her last name. So, Butters, the girl can act. The girl is funny. And she's just a little girl. I mean, every scene she in, she steals from all the adults in the room. And the main actress of the show is very funny. But the moment Anna Cat comes on, boom, she steals the show. Which now she's not on the show no more, because now she dipped her toes into Hollywood. As for Kari as a person, I know a lot of people hate her. I don't know her. Like I said before, I don't know her. Um, she does seem like a wild person, a party person. She did state on that interview that, when she was 15, she snuck out the house. She partied. I don't know how old she was when she went skinny dipping. I think that's in her adult age. At least I hope so. She was the life of the party. You know what I'm saying? And that's not really gonna get you in Hollywood, being this wild child type person. Um, cause people gonna look at you as, you're just too, like, not focused. Um, so I kind of wish she would have, like, matured a whole lot faster, because when people see that and they tell casting directors you're more likely to get a role. Um, as for her as a person, um, I do think she is a good woman. Like, when you see her post the stuff she does on Instagram, like I said, it's all about her family. Like, she loves her family to death. But I do think she has ruffled some feathers, like, in the Hollywood scene, with her, like, wacky and abrasive, like, personality. Um, Also, you have to remember, like, we don't really know her. And we don't really know the true full extent of the whole thing that happened with her and Sabrina. We know they had a fight, but, we don't know if Sabrina ever, like, threw some verbal jabs in there as well, or ever, like, instigated something. Because you know how it is, like, even, like, when you're, like, a kid in elementary and you're getting picked on by the bully, at some point in time, you're going to say something or start something, or you're going to say something behind somebody's back and they hear it. So we really, truly don't know what really happened behind the scenes of that show. And it's always two sides of a story, you know. You always have to keep that in mind. Like, I get, like, you should always believe people, and I do believe the main culprit in Sabrina leaving was Kari. I truly do believe that, only because of that article I read that time that I shared with y'all a long time ago. Because, I hate celebrities as well. I hate the Kardashians. I can't stand them. I want them to stay off TV and stop collecting those millions of dollars, because they do not deserve it. I'm tired of them lying about how real their bodies are, or how real their Thanksgiving food they cooked, and it wasn't. And they had a caterer bring that in, and it's just like, stop. Just be real. You're on a reality show. Real. Just be real. I mean, I have no respect for them, because Kim pretty much just laid on her back, took one for the team, and her whole family benefited off of that. They have no talent. I cannot respect that. Um, you know, and don't even get me started on her husband. And it's like, there are celebrities I'm mad at. I'm mad at the rebooted cast of Charm. Something happened last year between the new cast and the old cast, and one of them said something that they had no business saying, because it was a complete lie. And then the rest of the cast started chiming in a very childish kind of way, and it's kind of like, it was unnecessary. And it's like, I get, like, you might not like Kari's, like, wild behavior, but come on, we've all had that wild side in us at some point in time. We've all done stuff. um I mean, you can hold her accountable for what she did. You can be probably, like, disgusted by what she did. You can despise her for what she did, but, like, some of the hate that I've read on other YouTube channels and videos about her is just like, whoa, man, people really hate this woman, but they always hate her for the same reason. They always say it's her acting, or the whole Sabrina thing, because she's a completely different person when she's in these interviews. There's a reason why, the Conan interview is titled the way it is. And I didn't pick this up when I watched this old interview with her years ago when she did this other dude show. Okay, she made a statement one time saying that she loves her body. Her body's her best asset. It's her thing. and now she's getting older. And just like with many people, especially women, they don't like the idea of getting older because vanity is a big thing. Your looks is a big thing to a lot of people. You know, um, look at Madonna, for crying out loud. Cher, Marie Osborne. Anyway, they are obsessed with their looks, and they have all altered their faces and bodies because of that. And it's a little sad because I wish people would be more natural. I wish they would just age. I get some people don't age gracefully. They all can't be the Power Ranger people, you know. I get that, but it's kind of like it's natural. It's a part of life, and when you start altering yourself, you start to look different. Courtney Cox and Nicole Kidman found that out the hard way. Courtney Cox looked at herself in the mirror and asked herself, "Who is this person?" Nicole Kidman has said before, her face does not move. Sadly now, and I'm not throwing no shade or no disrespect to her, but sadly now, she does not look the same way she used to. She's still somewhat recognizable, but I truly believe she has started injecting fillers and Botoxes, and it's a shame because a lot of people have commented she, like, even in the past, Sabrina's way like hotter than her and all this. I think they're both attractive. They both have their own distinct look. I do not think Kari is an ugly one by no means. She's very beautiful. And it's just like I get why fans are upset, but sometimes fans can go a little overboard with their hate, and it's kind of like you have to remember these are still human beings. Like, I hate the Kardashians, but I wish them well. I don't want them nothing bad to happen to them. I just want them to disappear from TV. But not in a mob kind of way, and just in a retirement kind of way, a washed up kind of way. And Kari posted this one picture, the last picture of herself, and she wrote something on it that was so touching and heartbreaking, and it's just like it really hit you. You know what I'm saying? She explained how she's getting older and she doesn't like it. She doesn't always like the person she sees. She says she wishes she was still 30. You know what I'm saying? And it's really sad because it's not just her being a woman feeling that way. It's that standard Hollywood puts on you. You know, um, being youthful is everything in Hollywood to a woman. A man can be 80 years old and he can still get an acting role. A woman can be 40 years old in Hollywood and she's done. Like, she's done. Unless she wants to play like a grandmother or something like that. Or an old nagging woman. Like, that's how, like, take the lady from X-Men who played Jean Grey. I don't know how old she is. She's probably in her 40s or 50s. And she literally has said there's a double standard in Hollywood. She's gotten older and nobody will hire her. Her co-stars like Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart, they are much older than her and they're still getting roles. Despite those interviews and her wild party ways, she's shown that she is a good woman. Like, she really does. Like, and a lot of people don't see that, and because she doesn't let a lot of people see that in her. I think if she were to let people see more of her humanity, if she were to show people more of her humanity and not that wild, crazy person, I think people would have a different opinion of her. And I think she would have gotten more roles and stuff. Because there's something I didn't pick up on when I first watched that interview with her, and I forgot to mention that. She was spilling to the world how she really feels about her when it comes to her looks. She was opening up to the audience. She was exposing herself emotionally to everyone that this is how she feels about this. She doesn't like that she's getting a certain way. And people could not see that because of how silly and goofy she was acting in the interview. She would hide that. And it's kind of like if you really watch both those interviews, Watch the Conan one. Watch the other late night dude one. Watch this newer one she just did about talking about her being on 90210. The 90210 one is completely different. Now this is shot like recently because of the whole situation going on with the virus. So she's at home. So maybe that's why she's not acting wild and crazy. But in the other interviews, I believe she acts wild and crazy in those interviews. Like there's two different sides to her. There's that wild crazy side that's the center of attention, and then there's the more serious person. I believe the wild crazy one, she does for to be the life of the party, the center of attention. She doesn't want to feel awkward. She doesn't want to feel shy. She wants to be like, hey, look at me. Like I'm the like the happy person, the happy silly person. Like pay attention to me type person. You know, some of us have all done that before. Like some of us have all altered our personalities when we're around certain people or a certain situation, especially when you're feeling shy and awkward. It's just a part of life. I just think she kind of does it a little too much. And when she said in that interview, she said, you know, I forgot how old she was, but she said, you know, she's not 15 no more. It's time for her to grow up. And this was an interview she did post Sliders. So that's why I kind of felt that another reason why I believe like that article about her and Sabrina, because she said in the interview, you know, she could have been a lot nicer to some people, or you know, and stuff like that. And but it's kind of like if you watch those interviews, it was almost like a cry for help, almost. But like I said before, you can't really tell because she was trying to like trick us with the goofy silliness. I mean, I'm not defending Kari's actions of the past because she deserves that blame for things that she has done, as we all do. But it's kind of like, you know, just to straight up hate that person all because, like, say, like your favorite star on that show left. Um, I get why you're angry. You can be angry, but just the hate